S.T.A.L.K.E.R was a good game, but I felt like the beginning of it was like, it was almost like...
It was harsh.
It was harsh.
Working around, you know, THQ had certain expectations for like a worldwide market. You had to make the game accessible to an extent, and they really didn't care about doing it.
No, that they fought against it. It makes it feel, as you and I have talked about this in the past, it makes it feel less produced than any games that come out of the typical American or, most European publishers.
It's got the mentality of an indie game designer, but with like a game that's as visually arresting as anything out there.
Yeah, Clear Sky, the prequel to S.T.A.L.K.E.R, is much better looking than the last game. I mean, the last game was great.
Well, yeah, it's got all those DirectX bells and whistles, DirectX 10 bells and whistles, and even that first like 25 minutes or whatever that we saw, though the way that the sky changes gradually from late evening to night and back into day again, and you don't really even notice it unless you're looking for it, just like in real life, you don't really pay attention to every single minor change in the sun. It's just suddenly daylight.
I mean, I could see, I know you've looked at the Tarkovsky, you've watched the Tarkovsky movie called S.T.A.L.K.E.R, that this is like based on along with the fiction. And they really, I swear that they try to capture the sense of lighting in certain scenes as well.
I can believe that.
But visually, what I also appreciate about it is that, I mean, there's so few engines that are being used right now for AAA game development, but it's nice to see something else. In the same way that I like looking at Crysis, that it used a whole other engine, because after a while there's just an unmistakable fingerprint for like Unreal Engine 3, and it's not bad at all, but it's like, it's nice to see something else where it's a little, they underplay a lot of the normal mapping and effects. They'll say, this is a surface that we really want to draw attention to, let's put it on this, but let's not have wood look like it was shit out by the Vaseline monster or something.
There's like this new bog area in this game, which is, I guess, so they claim, bigger than anything that was in S.T.A.L.K.E.R, bigger than any area in S.T.A.L.K.E.R 1. And it's going to be just a free space where you can run around and look for new missions and kind of stumble upon new missions and have them fed to you when you get there, so you don't end up in some place where there's going to be a mission but you haven't got it yet, so you have to like run back and get it later, anything like that.
The design of that bog is interesting too, because when you're actually in it, you have no sense of the lay of the land. Once in a while you'll climb up a tower or something and you get to like take a look at it and see. You got to commit that to memory and then go back. But that means that you can hear something in a bush right next to you, and since you can't really get to any, it's like it's just flat. You can't get to high ground and see, there's a boar eating something in there.
Right.
You've got to like push through the bushes and get in there yourself. I mean, there's the whole sense of that game as well. It's like you just don't know what comes next. I mean, that goes into the principle with when you're looking for anomalies and stuff. You have these bolts, and there are these. I mean, I don't even know. There's supernatural, paranormal things that you'll find. You'll discover
the kind
your
of
location.
Stuff that happens after any run-of-the-mill nuclear explosion.
yeah, sure. And so it's like, but you don't know. I mean, you get a sense where they're at in the same way that you get a sense that maybe there's like some monster boar in the shrubs or something. But it's always like something can pop out at any time. It's this really sense of kind of like dread almost, but just caution as you move forward. What am I going to find next? I like that about the game.
Definitely. Well, and the really cool thing is that it's not just the monsters that are the mutants that can happen. Is the way that they described it to us is that there's various factions that are constantly at war with each other, and they have kind of their own Sims-like needs-based system in that they want to take over this territory because they need it for this particular resource or to go after this artifact, and they're constantly vying for territory. And you can apparently run across any of these AIs going at, any of these like AI squads going at each other at any time too.
Come on, yo.
The enemy never sleeps. Get ready.
Take this, you Nazi!
That dynamism plays like into the AI stuff, just like you're saying. So if you come across people in a firefight, you don't know immediately whether or not they're antagonists, whether they're friends or foes. If there's a couple groups fighting, you kind of get to observe a bit before you jump in. So it'll be interesting to see, because I mean, we haven't played it yet. We really don't know the extent. Maybe it turns out that it's just really shallow. Kind of like in Metal Gear Solid 4, where they're saying, you can help. Originally, when it was presented to me, it was like you can help
the PMCs.
The PMCs are the rebels, but it's really just this. You help the rebels, and you have no reason not to help them. But if this is actually really, fleshed out, where you can choose who who to align
Or
yourself with.
even more exciting if you could choose to not align with anyone, and that makes the game harder if you like sneak through alone as like a lone wolf. You know, that could be cool too.
Well, that was one of the things that that was described to us, is that he said, you know, you are a pure mercenary. You're not specifically aligned with any one group. So even if you've been fighting with one group this entire time, you can go and take jobs with this other group, no questions asked.
I don't imagine you could, because I mean, there are clearly going to be situations when they're out doing things and there are people fighting, and they're not both going to be fighting with you to kill each other.
Right.
Plus the fact too is when you look at those screens in the video we've got, they show like all these gauges for the like how tight you are with these different factions. And there has to, I mean, since there is some like granularity between just like, you know, how close you are to them, it has to be reflected in the gameplay rather than just they'll all give you, you know, missions and stuff.
Yeah.
One way this game, based on the preview video, isn't all roses, is that music.
I know.
I hope that that's like an option where you can switch it off. Like how absolutely atmospheric everything's. Like I've never been to Pripyat marshes or whatever. That this makes me feel like it. You know,
it immediately jumps you right out of it.
And then it's like, okay, so you did all this work with these graphics to put me in here, and then all of a sudden it's like na na ooh na 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 ooh na na. No,
I can't help but think of Grand Theft Auto 4, which has, you know, like hardly, I think, no music that ever plays that's not like environmentally sourced. You know, if there's a song playing, there's a radio sitting on a counter that's playing.
ShoC as well. A lot of games.
Guys, it ain't time to relax yet. A million thanks. Next time you're in our neck of the woods, drop by our base for a reward.
I've never gotten into those Diablo-style games, but in S.T.A.L.K.E.R, I did really enjoy the loot gathering, and I like the Diablo-esque, you know, like character menu where you slap. That part of that mechanic is great, and it's cool to see it in a different genre of game. It's not just about like you hit this guy and then 12 pieces of loot pop out and you go grab them. It's like this guy was holding this thing and now I've got it. It all plays back into the environment and the world in a much more fulfilling way and appeals to me more.
Like what you're saying, I imagine a scenario where you walk up and you see a group of stalkers or something, and you actually decide whether or not you want to fight them based on what they're holding.
Absolutely.
Like, oh, that guy's got like some kind of like Gauss rifle or something. I'm definitely gonna like hang out and start something with them.
You're right on time, bro. I'm real low on ammo, so let's make the best of it together.
Attention all fighters. Enemy mission is approaching. Get to cover now.
The last element about the game that remains unseen for me is just like the dungeon stuff.
Yeah,
we don't know like what they're gonna do, but those worked so well, I think, in the original game, because now and then
different tone, like, in those sections.
And when you'd end up in one, you'd kind of be like, "Am I ready to go down here now?" Like, I know if I go down this manhole, it's this whole other section, and it's gonna be like crazy poltergeist activity and just like creepy ass stuff, people banging on doors, and like that was always like, I'd have to psych myself up. Like after a while, like, am I ready for this part yet? Like, I'm just gonna go around and do some talk.
And that underground shit was a lot more scary than, you know, like Fear ever was.
Yeah, it totally was.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah, and I think there's like huge potential with. I mean, that's something you can get with like that kind of like visual fidelity with that atmosphere and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
I mean, if they really like play into that for the scares, that could be good.
Yeah.